I have been on a journey to be someone. And along the way, I learned the secrets. It's your friends, the people you choose to spend time with. My life, health, and wealth have been changed forever by the people around me. And now it's time for you to meet my friends. This is the Be Someone podcast with Michael Hoang. Welcome back to the Be Someone podcast with Michael Hoang. Today I'm here with Miss V Lee of RE Ballers. Good morning, V, or good afternoon now.
Hey, good morning to you too. What a great day it is outside.
Yeah, it is. We're in this. We're both in Houston, Texas, and we're in the part of the year where we swing from winter to spring to summer each week. Before we get
Yeah,
our
last
last.
week was miserable. It was cold, wet, windy, worst combination.
Yeah, no sun for days, and it affects your mood, or at least it always affects my mood. That seasonal effectiveness disorder is real, and then we get 80-degree temperatures and bright sunny skies the next week.
Yeah,
Yeah, so V and I have known each other for quite some time now. We're a part of a few different networking groups, and as I always talk about on the show, we are always trying to get you guys to surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do. It's like it rubs off on you. And so when I thought about who's going to be on my podcast, I said, we got to get V Lee on here. She's like a super networker, a connector. She's been in real estate for years. And everyone in the Houston scene knows Miss V Lee. So I'd like to start by asking you a very simple question. How did you get started in real estate?
well, simple answer was I needed a change. The long answer was I became a mom and I felt like I needed more freedom of time to raise her, to be with her. And so I stumbled upon real estate um, with the simple idea of uh, just be work less and make more money. So ran into an old friend who told me about another friend who was involved in real estate, and his word was he's super rich. And I'm like, okay, I'm talking to him. And next thing I know, it took me several months to do my research and such, but then I got into real estate.
Yeah, I had similar run-ins with people that everyone told me were super rich, and I kind of got in real estate for the same thing as I was following someone else's course that had been charted for me in life, and I was working my way through corporate America, and I got to a point where I had a, what I thought was a really good job, and I was in this weird position where I didn't really work for my boss, but me and my boss kind of worked for his boss. So I
Mm-hmm.
would work directly with my boss's boss to say boss
Mm-hmm.
10 more times. And he was making like over $250,000 a year. He was glued to a desk. He was miserable. He would share with us the difficulties in his family life. He was in his 60s. And I looked at his life and I'm like, is this really what I'm climbing to achieve? And I didn't even have kids at the time. And I just thought I was traveling for work. And I thought, I need to make a change if this is not what I don't want my life to look like. So that was kind of what drew me to real estate too. But I'm jealous that you became a mom early on in your real estate journey because I'm still trying to become a parent. So we're probably going to try to embark on that journey soon. And truth be told, I've said this in other interviews. I don't even know if we can have a kid. We've never even tried, so we're going to figure that out
Well,
soon
that's the
enough.
first step, right? You got to start trying. That's the fun part anyway. Trying until it became reality. I'm just kidding. Well, I am super thankful for my kid because I think that because of her, I when I got into real estate, I took things more seriously. Does that make any sense? For people who are parents, probably you probably get this. When you become parents, suddenly you feel responsible and you feel like you got to do it right. You can't fool around, mess around anymore. So you got to do it seriously. And so I think that helped with my success in the real estate path.
Yeah, you're working for two. You're not just working for one anymore. You have a
Yeah.
changes your responsibilities. I'm not a father yet, but almost everyone around me is a parent, and they're just like, it was night and day. A switch flipped when I became a parent of how I looked at the world.
Yeah, you work more effectively. You manage your time more efficiently, because you just have to split. Especially, I'm a single mom, so it's a constant battle between business and being a mom, being a business owner, being a mom. So someday I'm a wonderful business owner, a terrible mom, and someday I'm a wonderful mom and a terrible business owner.
Well, I
So
like to ask everybody's why. I have that written down as a question here, but you answered it without me having to ask. Is your why is being a mother and your family?
yeah, my why is really simple. I mean, I got in it for the money. Ain't gonna. I think there's no shame in admitting it. It wasn't like to make impact or change neighborhood. I mean, it sounds shallow. That come later, right? But the initial why was I want to provide for my kid, my family, and I got into real estate. Then it opened my door, opened my eyes, my horizon. Now I want bigger impact.
Yeah, yeah, we've been talking about that at other networking meetups recently, and we'll get into that eventually. But what I wanted to ask you about was tell us about your first deal, if you can remember the details, because you've been doing this for so long. But how did you find your first deal?
I don't know about the audience. Your audience are people in real estate, but I'll tell you, you'll never forget your first deal. At least I didn't. It felt like it was yesterday, even though it was over 10 years ago now. Um, First lead, I started marketing. My first lead went out on my first appointment. I was lucky. Went through the house and it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe I've seen a house in that kind of shape in America. I moved here from Vietnam, and when I came here, I mean, I just thought things were better, but walking through this house, it was a young couple. She inherited the house from her mother, and he was pregnant at the time. And so in my mind, I was thinking, oh my God, I need to buy this house so that they can get the money and go move to a better place because that place was not livable. One of the bathroom was all boarded up because it was so bad. Like, it had water damage and all. It was so bad. They boarded it up. So they don't even go to that side. You can't even walk in the backyard because the grass was like my chest high. It wasn't knee high, it was chest high. Um, but anyway, walked the house. I went and calculated my numbers. I was scared. I came back. I made my offer, and she said, "Yeah." Like I actually made the offer on the front porch. The couple was sitting on the bench, and I made the offer, and she took it. And she didn't even negotiate or anything like that. And I was like, okay, I'm scared now. you know. So I paid 27,000 for the
Wow.
house. Yeah. Um, do you want me to tell you about how I sold it or?
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to walk through a little bit. Like, I like what you said about how you didn't think houses would be this bad in America, and you came from another country here. But I like to remind people that, and you learned that day that people are people. Like, I've traveled the world a lot too, and that people are people. It's not much different as I've traveled the world. Like, the language will change, the food will change, the laws will change, but man, I've found that we have universal body language. You can communicate to people without talking, and people are absolutely people. So I like that you brought that up. And then um, your first appointment,
Yeah.
that is amazing. Your first appointment. So I was mentored by someone years ago who told me, and he was teaching a little bit of a different method than what I do today, but he taught me, or he used to say to the group, if you get a deal in your first appointment, it can ruin your career.
It could. It definitely could. I thought it was
Yeah,
easy, right?
yeah, because you like hit a home run on your first deal, and then, as real estate investors, we have to get used to the word no. A lot of people are going to tell us no, and I used to get upset by the word no, but I've now learned that no just gets me one step closer to the yes, and I have to get through 10 no's to get a yes or 15 no's to get a yes. And so when I got my first deal, I went on a couple of appointments before it actually happened, if I remember correctly. And I was just always like almost afraid because of what my mentor taught me. Like if you get a deal, your first deal, and then you get a bunch of no's, some people just give up and quit and think they got lucky on that one deal. But 10 years later, you stuck with it. So I'm glad that didn't impact you.
Well, I think it was like this. I had my mentor with me at the time too to help me run the numbers, right? And then he recommended, like, we did the math and all of that, and it come out to be that. But I just felt like I was scared. So I offered a little bit less than what we thought we should offer because I was scared. Like, I'm going to be ending up with that house. I mean, I wanted to make a reasonable offer so that she has money to move out. But at the same time, I was so scared. Like, what if I make a bad offer and lose, right? Like you said. But anyways, and then they took the offer. And at that moment I was just like, it's kind of exciting, but at the same time it was scary. Then now I have to, okay, where am I going to get the money to buy this house? What am I going to do with it? You know, uh, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. How did you fund your first deal?
Family and friends. So family money. Got the deal funded. I closed on it. Spent a few thousand to clean it up. The yard alone, I remember costing me 1,600 just to clean out the yard at the time, right? That was a lot. And
That's a
then cut
lot for
out
that's a
it
lot to clean up a
for
yard.
the for
Yeah.
a yard for like a typical subdivision 700 square foot lot, you know? Um, yeah, I told you it was bad. And then clean out the stuff in the bathroom, cut out the sheetrock because I didn't want to get into a rehab at the time. I was so new. I just didn't want to. And so I got it under contract with a hedge fund, and then they backed out. And here come the real scare. Like, oh, holy cow. What am I gonna do now? I can't sell this house.
So
Um,
so you were going to wholesale it to the end buyer essentially. That was your first plan.
well, I bought it already. I
I
closed
see.
on it.
I
Yeah,
see.
I closed on it. I
That's
cleaned it
right.
up, right? And then I was going through an agent who was connected to a hedge fund, and I was trying to sell it to a hedge fund at the time.
That's right.
So the hedge fund terminated the contract during the option period, and I freaked out. I drove to that house like almost every day just to look at it.
Tell you so what did I get myself into?
Yeah, what am I gonna do now? So long story short, I got it on the MLS and then I sold it to an investor. We still run into each other occasionally now in the Houston circle. Um, and I believe that investor flipped it, like did a beautiful job with the house and sold it. Um, but I was happy with the outcome, you know. Took a couple of turns, but
Do you remember what you sold it to him for? What price you guys agreed upon?
I think I sold it was either 65 or 69. So
Wow.
I did good. It wasn't a home run, but it was good. Well,
Yeah.
a home run in my definition is 50 and up net. That's a home run.
Well, you have definitely raised your financial thermostat over the years because for a first time deal, I'd consider that a home run.
I suppose. If you didn't lose money, it's a home run.
Yeah, right. And you learn. You either what did they say? You either win or you learn. I think that's what I was taught. Is you either win or you learn. Um,
I
so
wasn't in it to lose money. I'll tell you that. Because, I mean, I was a mom. I needed, all of that stuff. So I wasn't in it to lose money. I was very careful every time I made an offer.
yeah, and you were selling it to a hedge fund, which means you have to close on it. You can't wholesale to a hedge fund because they want you to take title before they buy it, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. But I didn't, it's not like I ran into them early on. I actually ran into them after I already closed. Like I was cleaning it out, and then the hedge fund came along, and it was a good offer. So I said, okay, I'll take it. Um,
Yeah, the guidance I've always worked by is that hedge funds will typically pay more, but they are very picky about the properties they want, and there's more paperwork. They usually want an inspection. They want you to close title in your name or an LLC, and we used to always say that hedge funds will always pay more, but that's not always the case. I would just caution people, especially since there are less hedge fund buyers now than there were a couple of years ago, at
yeah,
least
a
in
few years
Houston where
ago
we're
there
at.
were a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah, I know because I was competing against people who would claim to be representing a hedge fund in the zip codes where I was buying, and they were making high, very high offers to buy, and I was still buying much lower than their offer because I was letting them know, like, hey, I'm a real person. I can close. I'm not a wholesaler. I'm the end buyer. It goes to me. We actually have the money. Here's proof of the money. It's not some fairy tale that a wholesaler is selling you. And I was able to buy house like this house here. I competed with the house I live in now. I've told the story before, but this was going to be a rental property, and then we ended up moving into it. And a hedge fund was putting a higher offer on it, or a wholesaler who claimed he was a hedge fund, but he was actually going to sell it to a hedge fund, was competing against it. But there are still hedge funds. There are always hedge funds out there buying, but man, a lot of them have gone away in recent years.
When Houston was saturated with hedge fund was right after Harvey. You
Oh, really?
remember that? Yeah. Or were you in real estate at the
I
time?
didn't experience that. I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't go head to head with hedge funds then. Right after
Right after
Harvey.
Harvey, so many out of town people flooded into Houston. Um, but I don't think many of them made it out um well.
I don't think they made any money because I remember when that happened. And one, when there's a natural disaster, I'm not rushing to buy um, because it doesn't feel great to me. If I already have a
Hmm.
relationship with someone, then I'll buy. But after natural disaster, I know that there's some ethical issues. I also know that there's going to be hard time getting labor and material. And then I believe it was after Hurricane Harvey, I saw a duplex that was completely flooded in a part, like it was, the water was up to the roof or something is what the
Hmm.
description said. It needed a complete rehab, and it was selling because out of town money had rushed in and bid up.
Hmm.
It was selling for more than what I calculated the ARV to be, unrehabbed.
Yeah.
And I I was told that California and New York hedge funds and out of state money was just rushing in and bidding up everything because they have a certain amount of time to deploy their money in order for them to make
Hmm.
the return they're looking for. And they
Yeah.
don't always make money. And so I saw that a duplex in the Spring area, going for that kind of, and I was like, you know what? I'm not interested. I'm going to sit on the sidelines. You know?
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
Um, so you found your first deal, you locked it up, you funded it, and then you sold it to a local investor that your mentor connected you with, right?
Uh, I'm not sure. It might have I may have run into this investor at a networking event or something like that.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
he turned it into a rental, or did he flip it? Do you know what he
Oh,
did?
you mean this local investor? No, this I did not know this local investor at the time. They made an offer through the MLS. I had it listed on MLS after I did a good job cleaning it up. I didn't do any rehab, any repairs. Like I said, I didn't want to get into it was a big rehab for me at the time.
Right.
So I just clean it up. I put it on MLS, which is strategy I still use a lot today. Um, Clean it up, put it on the MLS, and this investor came, offer, we got under contract and they closed.
And when you clean it up and put it on the MLS, what you're typically trying to do is price it lower than the cost of a fully rehabbed house, right?
So what you do is you look at all the actives and then you price your property to where it makes sense. And I know it's vague, but you you look at all the active and you price it to where it looks like a really good deal, which it is a good deal, right? Um, because it's still cheaper. It's cheaper than all the other stuff on the market, uh, of similar with similar condition. That makes sense. So you price it competitively. And when I put it on the MLS on that Saturday, I was still working at the time at a full-time job and my other business. Um, and the phone was just ringing and ringing and buzzing all day. And that was when I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so maybe I get this sold, you know. Yeah, so the phone was buzzing all day. I was with customer and everything. I gotta take this call. I gotta take this call. um, yeah, so that's the strategy. When you clean it up really well. You cut out the bad stuff if it's really bad. Like I said, spend a lot of money cleaning out the yard to where it's easy for people to envision what they're gonna do with the property, and then I'll sell it as is like that.
I see. And what year was this? Do you remember?
2014.
2014. So you priced that property right. If you put a property on the market and no one's calling you and no one's going to view it, we know we've overpriced it.
Yeah.
And we want price. We don't. It depends on the situation, but for me, I never want the highest dollar amount for my house. I just want it to sell. And
Mm-hmm.
so you've priced it properly when people are calling, doing showings. Um, so you priced it very well, especially for a first time deal. I see a lot of first timers that are you had really good mentorship because a lot of newbies might look at where comps and where things are selling, and they say, "I just want the absolute most out of this. I got to get the most out of my first deal," and then ends up sitting and sitting, and you're paying money and you're holding it, and then you start to lose interest in being a real estate investor. So I'm glad you
Well,
had good mentorship and priced it properly.
there's good common sense and obviously good guidance. But I'll tell you what, now after years, sometimes I get greedy, right? Because I price them right and then they sell too fast. And then I get greedy and I was like, okay, let's just price it up a little. And I end up making less money on those houses.
I
So
I've done
listen
the
for the
same thing.
listener.
I've
Don't
done the
be
same
greedy.
thing. You price a property 10,000 more or even 5,000 more than it should be, and then it sits for a few months.
Yeah,
And then the offers you get sometimes, not always, but sometimes the offers you get are by less qualified people that are like,
right.
I'll pay you this high price if you deal with all of my paperwork issues, or I don't know if I can get a loan, I don't have any money. And so I also notice when I overprice both houses for lease and selling houses, I've gotten some very low quality, like weak borrowers, I mean, weak buyers or weak residents that want to move in. So I've learned it's all about pricing it right. And I fell into that same trap. However, V, you've earned the right to do at that rate, at that point, I would call that price discovery. When you're a newbie and you try to overprice it, you're being greedy. But when you've done a lot of deals, you've got money, you've got experience, you have reserves, and you can hold the property, you've earned the right to do some price discovery. So I wouldn't call it greedy at your current level of experience. I would call it just you're
It's all
just
right,
going
Michael. We'll just call it what it is.
greed.
What's that? Greed is good.
Yeah, greed is good until you lose money on a deal. Then it's not good. Okay, and so that was what your first deal looked like. So what does a deal look like today that you're doing? How has your business changed, and what do your deals look like now?
Well, so my business, the house buying business hasn't changed too much. I I don't know if I said this yet. I don't think I did. But I got in through buying a home investor franchise, and because of that, what it helped me is, you know this. If you want to start buying your own and start up your own house buying operation, what people don't realize is you got to have multiple departments in your operation. You got the marketing to get leads. You got the sales process, like your how do you get in front of in the living room so you can buy, and then the dispo, and not talking about the rehab in between, right? So you got multiple departments in your company. So by buying a home investor franchise, I got rid of the marketing department. Like I don't have to generate the leads, although I do have to pay for the leads. So, but that's not an area I'm good at. So I'd rather write a check every month. They figure out how to generate the lead. They figure out they do mails, internet or TV or whatever, billboards, and then I get the lead. And now all I have to worry about is how do I get in the living room and figure out a solution for that seller. You know, if I can provide a solution to them and make money along the way, it's a win-win for both of us. So I have one less thing to worry about. So a deal today, still similar. However, today the market has changed. It is way more competitive. We no longer the only person show up in the living room like we were, years ago. Right now, when you show up to someone's living room, they probably had, someone come before you, someone come after you. So most likely you're competing with other people. So you really have to get really good at talking to the seller and guiding them through the process. So that's
Not
the
only
major difference.
not only that, but I've noticed that there are more wholesalers out there
Mm-hmm.
posing as cash buyers. And what I've noticed is like there's so many offers that are getting made that are higher than makes sense on the property. And I've had a hard time educating sellers on and letting them know like this is not a real offer. This is not going to close. They're going to change the price before closing, or they're just trying to get the property under contract to get in here and do an inspection. And I have not had a lot of success educating sellers. Have you been successful in that?
So my little bit, I would say, the deal we just closed on, seller had multiple offers as well. So what we've done differently uh, now is we always assume that there are going to be multiple offers. So we try to dig a little deeper, like, hey, if you decide to sell to me, or if you decide you don't want to sell to me, who would you consider and why? So we want to have that conversation up front. And if it's the money, right? Then, okay, well, let's talk about the money. If this house is worth X. So I walked through this example with another seller the other day. He said he got an offer for 210. The ARV was 230, actually 255. This house gonna need at least 35. He got an offer for 220. Sorry, 220. I said, do you think they're not ever gonna close? After we did the math, he said no. You see? So you gotta just talk real numbers sometime to the seller and discover the problem before it become a problem.
So you sat down with the seller and you let them know what the house is worth if it's rehab. You gave the seller real numbers and you said, here's what they want to pay. When we add the cost to rehab the property in, do you think that they're going to make money on this? And they say no. And they say that, then you say, do you think this is a real offer? Is this offer going to close? Are they ever going to pay you? And then the seller comes to the realization on their own that this is not a real offer.
They have to come to their own decision, right? So it so happened that there was a house with exact same floor plan sold in that neighborhood for 255, right? So I pulled it up. I showed it to him and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's the same house, right?" Okay. I say, "You think is it fair to say that your house would sell for 255? Maybe you're lucky you sell it for 260. Or maybe you're not and you sell it for 250. But it's fair, can we assume this? And would you agree that it's going to take this much to get your house to that condition?" Okay, so now we end here. How can someone pay you 220? They can't, you know? So
Right.
then I said, well, here is our cash offer. I mean, I was at the 120 range. Now, I didn't get this deal, but at least he now know, right? He said, I gotta have net like 200. I said, the only way you're gonna net 200 is you put in the work. And he said he's gonna put in the work. He seems to have a little bit of experience with real estate, so he's a landlord. And he said he's gonna do the work. I think that's what he's gonna do because that's the only way he can maybe walk away with 200. He's not gonna get that selling to another investor.
So what I like about what you said there is I find myself in that situation too, is you give the seller everything you've got. And if the best solution is not to sell to you, I still tell them, here's how you can get what you need. Rehab the property, or maybe you need to talk to an agent. I can refer you an agent. We can get it listed on the MLS. I like that even when you're not the buyer, I do the same thing. I still try to point them in the right direction they need to go because not everybody I talk to needs me to be their solution. So I like how you did that. Um, I also like how you brought the conversation down, not to the offer, but to the real money that the seller needs to take away. Because many
Mm-hmm.
times it's not about the money. You and I have spoke about this before, and I love how you said it's almost never about the money.
Yeah.
I'm stealing your line from you and saying it on your interview on my
Just footnote
podcast.
me.
Yeah, you say it's
Can I get a
never.
dollar every time you said it?
That you said you go ahead.
My residual. It's like the radio. Every time they play a song, the artists get paid, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so you said it's never about the money because the deals that I've done, it was not about the money. There's another issue you've got to dig down and find. It's they need help finding the next place to live, or they need help moving, or they need a storage unit paid for. I've paid 6 months of a storage unit up front for somebody before we closed, which don't do that if you're new. Don't give the seller anything if you're new. Work with your mentor on it. But there's a situation that I found acceptable as an experienced investor. And so we usually have to get to the issue that's other than money. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
ask them, is it the money? They're going to say it's the money. But really, you have to learn how to dig and find what they really need. And I love what you said. I say it a little bit of a different way. You, you said something along the lines of, like, I like to tell the seller, if all these offers were the same, who would you go with?
Mm-hmm.
And say
Well,
nothing. And say
I
nothing.
said, what's that?
And then say nothing and let them talk.
Yeah. It's like if you decide to sell, not to sell to me, you don't want to do business with me, or you don't like my offer, who would you sell it to? Something
Because
of that along that line.
because
Yeah.
some people just vibrate differently and people just get along with other people differently. And so and I'm okay with that. It's just I just don't want a maybe. A yes is okay and no is okay. I just don't want a maybe when I talk to a seller.
Well, so what's that sale training? John Martinez, right? He said, when the seller give you a maybe, you just said, okay, let's just call it what it is. If it's not a yes, it's a no,
I love that.
right? If it's not a yes, it's a no, period. So he has a really great line. He said, okay, so maybe I'm crazy, but I just get a feeling you seem like a really nice person. So I just get this feeling You want to tell me no, but you're just too nice and you're afraid, you think you might hurt my feeling if you tell me no. So it's okay. Am I crazy or what? Right?
I love that. Because if they want to sell to you, then it's immediately like, yes, yes, I want to
It's
sell
this
to you.
flip, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something else they thinking about. Maybe it's a true maybe. And then you address it. It come out. But if you don't address it, then it's hidden and then you gotta spend hours to follow up and follow up and follow up. So
Yeah, I feel like we could do like a whole episode just on seller objections and how to do appointments. I really love that part of the business. And I have not been successful closing deals virtually. I know a lot of people have done it. I've done it before, but I really like to go to the property one on one and talk with the
mhm.
seller. There's people who've made whole businesses doing it over the phone, and doing DocuSigns through email. It works. People are doing it. People are making money, but I just love walking a property with a seller and figuring out what their real problem is.
Well, I think if you really ask and dig deep, the people that never walk the property, they wholesale, right? So virtually is no risk to them. They're not the one writing the check. They just get the seller to enter an agreement, a contract at X price and trying to sell it for X plus. So if they can't sell it for X plus, then they get out. But if you're going to be the one writing the check, I think most of them would walk the property.
That's right. So we should talk about business models a little bit because I think I've been muddying the water. You primarily buy the properties yourself, right?
I do. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people I talk to on the show, and a lot of people who will tell you they're a real estate investor, they're really just a wholesaler. So they're trying to find a good deal, put it under contract, and they're not selling the property, they're selling the contract to the end buyer. They're trying to find the property and sell the contract to V, where V's trying to actually buy the property yourself. Similar to me, I'm not opposed to wholesaling, but when I look at a property, I'm looking at it through the lens of I'm going to buy this thing. I'm giving you real money. This is a real offer. I've even brought bank statements and stock accounts to show the seller, hey, I'm not giving you a phony baloney pre-approval letter from a hard money lender. I'm giving you a real show that I'm the guy with the money that I'm going to buy from you. And so everyone's got a different business model, but you're primarily taking the houses down, right?
Well, so like I said, the beautiful thing with being a part of Home Investors, because I don't have to worry about the marketing, I can focus more on the sale process. I call it sale process, or you can call it buy process, whatever you want to call it. The part where you sit in front of the seller and be a solution, right? So our operation is a little different that way. And yes, to your point, I'm not opposing wholesaler. I've wholesaled you, in the past, and we may wholesale a few more. But what I'm opposing to is a lot of time the wholesaler just take what the seller asks. That's what I'm opposing to, and give some BS numbers, like, you know, where it doesn't make sense. So I would say if you're a wholesaler, try to do a little bit more due diligence, figure out the numbers, figure out what makes sense. Don't just, agree because the seller name a price and you can't negotiate, so you just take it and trying to wholesale it and make a few bucks.
Yeah,
It's just, yeah.
I don't like the business model of wholesalers putting things under contract and then just looking for a buyer on the contract. I'm not a fan of that at all. I get probably 10 emails, 20 emails a day from wholesale deals here in the Houston area. And when you're dealing with a wholesaler, especially one you've never dealt with before, you should assume all their numbers are wrong and do all your own due diligence. And they'll usually tell you in the agreement, do all your own due diligence. But I've seen a trend of most wholesalers, particularly rookie wholesalers, they're just order takers. Whatever the seller wants, they put it on their contract, they write it up, and then they try to find the end buyer. And it sets up bad expectations because some of these sellers, they might be packing to move. They might be
Mm-hmm.
moving their life, expecting that paycheck to come at the end of the closing. So if the numbers are too far apart. I know I can't do anything with this deal with this wholesaler. And it's never a bad idea to ask a wholesaler, especially if you have good rapport with them, how did you come up with these numbers? And you can tell usually by how they answer that they're just an order taker. They're just trying to fill an order and they're hoping to get lucky.
Well, sometimes they're so new, right? And they just hear like, oh, so and so, just get into wholesaling. And I mean, I applaud them, some of these people, for taking initiative and go out and try to call and do deals. But I would say take the next step, trying to learn how to analyze a deal, how to comp a house. You know, take that extra step to make yourself stand out from all the other wholesaler. But back to you said I think your question was, what does my operation look like? When we buy a property, we buy mostly face to face, eyeball to eyeball in the living room, and any property that we get under contract with, we intend to close, and we either keep them as a rental, hotel them, flip them. If we don't intend to close, like in scenario where the seller is here and we are here and we can't close at their number, but we know that we probably can sell it to wholesale it, for example, to other investor in our group and still make a little bit, then that's when we wholesale. And we upfront about it. We tell the seller about it. Hey, I can't pay you this, but I can try. I can try to pitch your deal to our group and see a group of investor that we work with to see if we can get it moved. If you're going to do that, might as well try it with me. At least you know what you're getting. So we're very upfront with the seller about what it is that we're trying to do.
And I'd also like to remind people, just because the seller tells you no and goes with someone else's offer doesn't mean the deal's dead. I've had where they go with another offer, they find out that there wasn't a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and then they call you back 30, 60, 90 days later, say, hey, Michael, is that offer still good? Then, well, and has anything changed about the house? No? Okay, then the offer is still good. Let's do it, Have you had that happen? Have you had sellers go with somebody else and then call you back?
Of course. It's happened multiple times. You just got to stay on it. Now, on this note, here, when you call back and follow up and they say, oh, I sold it to someone else, my office is trained to ask the following question. Have you gotten your money? Because when the seller say sold it to someone else, they meant I've entered a contract. But we all know contract can bust, right? So the next immediate question is, have you gotten your money? Not have you closed your transactions? Have you got fund? None of that stuff. Have you gotten your money? Because I was training a new buyer and who was like using all the fancy language, like, have you got funded? Like, they don't know what funded means. So just keep it simple. Have you gotten your money? And then, no. Oh, when are you supposed to get it? Okay, is it okay if I follow back up with you? So then there's open the door for you to follow up.
I love that. So you don't have to have a fancy CRM or software. You can just use an Excel spreadsheet or Google spreadsheet or even just a notepad and just write down follow-up dates, call the seller and follow up with them and see if
just do a calendar
house.
thing, right? Like put it on your calendar, on your phone, reminder.
There you go. I love that. It doesn't even have to be an Excel spreadsheet. I'm overworking over here. You could just make an appointment on the calendar on your phone.
That's right.
So now that you're 10 years into the game and you're more experienced, how do you find the areas that you want to invest in now?
You mean where do we buy?
Not specifically where do you buy, because that can change over time, but you can tell us where to buy because someone in the audience might have a deal they want to bring to you, but it's more like, how do you determine that you want to go invest in a certain area?
See, that's where I'm a lot simpler than you, Michael. I know you do all your readings and all your fancy calculations and
Guilty.
I I don't think that hard. I'm just really simple. I'm part of the Homevesta group. My territory is Houston and Corpus Christi. So we get leads in Corpus Christi, we buy. We get lead in Houston, we buy. If anyone have deal for me in Houston, bring it to me. I buy them. If they have deal in Corpus Christi, I buy them. Now, sometimes I buy in Austin. Sometimes I mean, well, I say Houston, I mean like Galveston, the 5 counties, right? So, uh,
The, the Houston and the surrounding areas. And if somebody has a deal in those areas and they want you to take a look at it, they want to sell it to you, how would they get a hold of you?
email me or call me. I suppose here we have it's 713 ballers.
713 Ballers, Ballers, 713 Ballers. And then is there an email as well?
Yes, they can email me v@reballers.com.
There you go, guys. You got a deal in Houston, Galveston, maybe even Austin. She'll take a look at it, and then the surrounding areas as well. And then when you're looking at area, are you concerned about like the ratio of like actives to pendings on the MLS? Do you look at anything like that?
I do, and that affects me when I sell, right? So it's like for example, Galveston right now, you got a lot of actives and little sold. So I have to budget for longer holding, like days on market. And also it affects my offer because when I end up with this house, I want my house to look like a deal. So I need to price it to where it may be the cheapest 1,200 square foot home that are available. So I will be the first one to be sold. That's kind of my thinking of where I look. But I think back to the question you asked, where do I invest? And I think I got asked this question recently by someone who's looking to get into real estate. This person lived in Austin and asked me if they should buy in San Antonio. And my answer is, well, you buy where you can get to quickly and where you can comfortably buy. Um, I like to invest where I'm at, you know, and in Corpus Christi, we have people that can go look. Because when you're starting out and you got like someone call and say, hey, I see water coming out of your house. What do? You can run over and turn off the water quickly. But if it's 3 hours away, what are you going to do about it? Now you have to get on the phone and call somebody, so
That's right. So invest where you have boots on the ground. Your boots, or an employee, or a partner, or a mentor, or somebody.
friends, neighbor, whatever, high school friends, somebody.
And I'm not a CPA or an attorney or a tax guy, but I've met people who tell me that they will invest where they like to travel to as well, where they might have family or where they like to vacation, because when they travel out there, that becomes an expense on their business they can write off. I haven't got to that level yet where I can buy where I like to fly, but I was told by a mentor early on that you can buy where you want to fly. But I've found plenty of deals here in Houston, so I haven't had to spread my wings much.
Yeah, I agree. We got plenty of deals here. They some cash flow, some for capital appreciation, um, value appreciation. So there's plenty to go around.
Yeah, that's been my experience here at Houston. And so, how are you funding your deals today? Your first one was friends and family, we talked about. But today, when you get a deal you want to buy and you're going to keep it, you're not going to wholesale it. How are you funding that purchase?
Several way, depends. Sometimes cash, sometimes line of credit, sometimes a hard money lender. It depends. So if I got a bunch of cash sitting around, then I fund it with cash. If it's a small deal, actually, if it's like 10, 15, 20, maybe 100, you know, but if it's more, then I probably will leverage a lender, bank line of credit, um, and hard money lender.
But you're an actual buyer though that has real cash, and I know this because I know you and I know our community. A lot of people will tell the seller, "I can do cash, I can do hard money lender, I can do this, I can do that." They have no access to real money and they can't show any real proof of funds. So I'm glad that you're one of the people out there making offers where you actually can perform on the contract you're offering and you do have money and you
Oh,
can
if
buy
I
it.
enter a contract, you damn well I'm gonna perform. I told my client, my seller, I'm not in the business of writing contract. I'm in the business of buying houses. So,
I love that you said that because I think one of the deals I got, the only reason I got it when I look back at it is because I told them, I said, we were talking about me coming out to look at the house. He's like, "Well, when do you want to look at the house?" And I said, "Sir, I don't want to come look at your house. I'm coming to buy your house." And I
yeah.
could tell that him and his wife, he had me on speakerphone. I could tell like they were like, "Ooh, like no one else has told us that before." And so when you say something like that, you have to say it with godlike confidence because I did. And he was probably
Hmm.
talking to a million wholesalers that were just trying to get a signature on a piece of paper. And I beat them out of that offer. But it was like the conversation changed when I said, "I don't want to come look at your house. I'm not scheduling a viewing of your house. I'm coming to buy your house and I'm going to have an agreement with me in the car." I don't like to call it contract. I like to call it an agreement because I think contract is scary. Um, but I just tell them I'm coming to buy it and I've got an agreement in the car. And so make sure that you're there so you can sign it. Like don't send a family member to show me your house, please. It was a vacant rental that he was selling me.
Yeah.
So I like that you said that you're, I put this under contract, I'm buying it.
Yeah. I mean, unless there's surprises, I mean, this is where like I uncover things too, right? Unless there's surprises that you haven't told me about, unless something crazy happened that I don't know of yet, and they'll go, no, 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 there's nothing. The house is fine, you know.
I like that.
But
You kind of put it back on them. Yeah, like unless there's something seriously wrong with the house. Or I tell them like if you've been honest with me and you told me the condition of the property, if everything is how he says it is, I'm buying the house and this is what I'm paying. There's no
hmm
reason to mess around with it. And then your exit, how you exit today, are you still mostly selling on the MLS?
So exit is wholesale some, whichever, and then clean it up, put it on MLS. A lot of time, we do a lot of it actually. Clean it up, put it on MLS, or rehab and put it on MLS.
I see.
It's
And
it's just open up your property to the world, right?
right. And then I know you have rentals, but you're mostly flipping now or wholesaling, right? You're not really adding many rentals these days.
I say that, then I go back and forth. Every time I look at the property, I'm like, okay, this can make a good rental. It's nice, it's new, it's a good neighborhood. Okay. So yeah, I still look at it. I haven't added one this year yet, but still an option.
Yeah, we're only in February. There's a long way to go in this year. Um, I like to always look at it like you flip properties to get rich, you hold properties to get wealthy. And so I know people that they have a pattern where they like flip, flip, hold, and they flip houses to get the money to hold the rentals. Um, I haven't followed that pattern, but I know that real wealth is created from holding real estate, letting it appreciate, and letting the mortgage pay down on it. That's where real wealth comes from, in my view.
I agree. I mean, it's amazing when you look back, like a couple of properties. My first rental, for example, I was gonna wholesale it, right? And I couldn't wholesale it for a 17,000 assignment fee. And this investor that I was gonna wholesale to said, "Hey V, this is a good area. Why don't you hold it?" And I'm so thankful for this investor for saying that to me because I held it and I paid 115 for it. It's probably worth three something today, 360 today.
Wow.
So yeah, so I'm very thankful to this person for telling me that I should hold it instead of buying it from me for, I was trying to make a 17, 18K assignment fee.
Yeah, you would have to flip a lot of houses with and put a lot more effort into flipping houses than you did to make that 200 grand or whatever it was on that property.
Well, yeah, now I have to worry about how I'm gonna write off when I want to sell it.
So we call those high quality problems. So when you started in real estate, you had low quality problems, and now you have high quality problems like, I made so much money. How am I going to structure this to be efficient on my taxes?
Maybe Trump will get rid of the IRS and we don't have to worry about it. I'll hold it.
And so I wanted to ask you a question here, and kind of a tough one, but when you go on appointments, you don't always look like the people that you buy houses from. You might have a different background, or you might be from a different part of the world than them, and you're also a woman. Do you feel like that has stopped you from being a real estate investor, or how's that impacted your business?
Okay, pause. Let me plug in my laptop.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I wanted to ask you to get your full experience and story. When you go on these sales appointments, you might not always look like the people that you're talking to, or you might not be the same gender. You're a woman in real estate. And how's that experience been for you?
For the most part, positive. I'm not one who kind of dwell on the negative side of things, right? So I never really look at the world through that lens per se. It's just more of what I can do to my advantage, how I can help. And I think that yes, this is the used to be, I think that's changing now. Used to be a predominantly male world and also mostly white. So I've had occasion where I show up to the door and knock and they looked and like, you? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, I was expecting an older white male. Like some people were honest like that. And I've had men asking me, what are you doing here? I think it's more of a concern safety questions than questions of credibility, right? Other time where if I talk to someone on the phone, when I used to answer every buy call, I call them buy call, lead line. When I used to answer the call, I can tell if this is a serious situation where I need to uh, align with another colleague, someone, white, male, to go out. But it hasn't been an issue in the last several years. It was more of an issue early on, but I honestly think that it helps more than it hurts because people think I'm harmless. Also, when I go and meet with the older women, right? They feel safer meeting me versus like a man, right? So I think overall it has been more positive than negative. I can probably name, the number of time it was negative, but most of the time it's been positive. I'll tell you a crazy story. You've got time for it.
I love crazy stories.
So I was on a buy appointment, and Sunnyside.
I do.
So Sunnyside, for you those that don't know, is the highest crime area in Houston, right? So it's out on this buy appointment. When I showed up, I was talking to the wife the whole time, like on the buy call and all. So I went, and the husband was sitting in the front porch by the car, and he just motioned me, like ignore me when I said hi. I went inside, talked to the wife. We did the walk, and then we were sitting in the living room, talking, negotiating. She sat on this couch here. I sat on the smaller chair on the other side, and suddenly the man came in with a knife.
Oh my.
And I'm sitting here, and he at the front door, and I'm like, holy cow, what am I gonna do, right? He came in with a knife, and he was like pointing the knife at me. And this man is big, he's old, so I was worried, but I told myself, if needed to, I can take him down. That's my crazy head, right? I guess I had no fear. But I was thinking, okay, I need to get out of here, and the only way out is through him, through the front door. Because the back door is too far, and I still got to go in the back and all that crazy stuff. So anyway, he came and he got a knife, and he was pointing at me, and he was like, look at her face. Look at this face. We ain't doing business with this face or something like that. Like, you know. And so it felt like it was a long time. I was standing there, I was remaining calm, and his wife was just in shock, right? Thankfully, his grandson came home, and he was pulling his grandpa out of the way, and I just left. But that was a crazy experience. That's probably the closest I've come to anything threatening.
You take the cake. I've
Yeah.
not had anything like that happen on a buyer's appointment.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. We, wow. That is quite an experience. You know, you were talking about being a woman in real estate and how it's helped at times. I was thinking when you were telling that story about how sometimes sellers have told me that I can't come look at the property until their husband is home. And I thought maybe that would have been different if I was a woman. She would be like, come on over right now, you know?
You
So
could
I
become
like,
Michelle.
yeah, right. I could just tell them my name is Michelle instead of Michael. And, so I never thought I like how you said you look at the bright side of things. You don't focus on the negative. And the bright side was there's deals that have happened or went more smooth because you were a woman and they felt more comfortable letting you in the house. I really appreciate you sharing that story with us.
And I
So
think whether you're a guy or a girl, whatever, when you out in people's home, you just gotta be alert. You just gotta be alert. You know, watch out for your environment. Watch out for, know who's around. You can't just put your guard down. That's my biggest safety tip for anybody.
yeah, and when I knock on the door, I also stand back away from the door and kind of turn my body sideways a little bit because when people look through the peephole or the window, for some reason, their body language is way less threatening when I go and do that. And I never assume I'm getting into the house. I wait for them to invite me in the house. I'm not so brash as to just try to walk into somebody's home. And I've had sellers not want to go in the house, that we've got to go out in the driveway and talk first before we can be invited in and walk the property. So I'm always prepared to do whatever the seller is most comfortable with. But I'm not buying a house without seeing it first. That's one thing I'm not doing. So I want to talk about what real estate gives you the freedom to do. So as your business matures and you've become more successful, how has your life changed, and what do you do differently now in your life thanks to real estate?
Oh, well, my life has changed tremendously. I was able to retire my mom. Last year, I took my mom and my daughter on a trip of our life. We travel around the world. We were one step behind you, right?
Stop.
So we went to 21 cities. The beautiful thing was we we didn't know how long we were going to go for. So we just book a one way out and then just kind of make our way through. And the trip lasted for 5 months. Oh, that was great. So that's what real estate has done for me. It also opened my eyes. It put me in connections with a lot of good. Let me rephrase this. I made a lot of many good friends in this on this journey, and I think it's also helped me to recognize who I am, to really understand my strength and my weaknesses and who I am. I think up until then, I probably was just floating, trying to figure out what it was that I was trying to do in this world.
Yeah, some of the best parts about real estate for me have been my friends as well. And I say on the intro of this podcast that I started on a journey to be someone, and I learned the secret along the way, and it's your friends. Because we don't realize it, but we are set on a course in life by either our parents, our school. Somebody has put us on a course. If you think you are making the decisions in your life of whatever your career is and what you do on your own free will, it's really not been. It's been the degree you studied for or what your family told you should be. And then I learned that I was the person that my friends and family expected me to be. And when I changed my friends, I changed my life and my entire identity and situation around me. And so I always encourage people, if you want to be a real estate investor, you've got to make different friends. Because some of the best friends I've ever had were people that were in real estate. I'm also jealous about your trip. Sorry, did you want to talk about friends?
I'm going to pause here real quick. So we talked about follow up earlier, right? How's you? Okay, look, I just got a text back here from a seller who she went under contract with someone else and then now just call back and take five less than what we were initially offering.
They texted you or they called you?
Texted.
Okay.
Call first. And I was recording, so I didn't answer the phone. See how important you are? So I just got
take the call on the podcast. Put them on speakerphone. Let's go.
So don't give up until the house is actually sold and they got the money.
So we were a little confused. She said, let me pause you. And I thought she meant pause the video, the recording, because she looked at her phone. So I paused recording. She's like, no, pause talking. Keep recording. I just got a seller texting me back. So we had a little bit of chaos there.
Sorry, my bad. I mean, my phone was ringing and I had to look over because it was ringing and ringing. I had 6 missed calls.
I love that. The serious look on your face whenever a seller is calling you. I love that. You just snapped right into it. I thought there was
wasn't a setup either. It's so beautiful that it happened right now when we just talked about that earlier today.
Yeah. Hopefully my editor can figure out a way to keep that little bit in there for the authenticity of her pausing me so she could tell me a seller reached out. What I was about to tell you is that I was jealous about that trip you took. I saw it on social media for 5 months because me and my wife kind of celebrated my real estate retirement by us doing 3 months in Asia, and we jumped across a few different countries. We were in Japan and Taiwan and Vietnam. And I remember I was paddling on a boat in a river somewhere in northern Vietnam. I don't even remember where we were. I was so tired. And this river goes through a cave system, and so you're paddling on boats going through. And I was messaging you through social media because they have great cell phone coverage everywhere you go in the rural areas of Vietnam. I was really impressed with it, and then just as soon as I got back, you were gone as well. And so I really cherish like having friends in real estate that people with a normal job are not going to understand you spending 3 months overseas, going from country to country. And I felt depressed might be a strong word, but when I was flying back from that trip over the Pacific Ocean, I was doing the math of the average job giving you 2 weeks vacation. And I was like, I just spent like 6 years of vacation in 1 year. It would take me 6 years to spend this much free time doing what I love. Um, and then I kind of got sad because I thought about all the countries I want to see and all the places I want to go. And I was like, if I had a full time job, I would probably die of old age before I got enough vacation to go do what I want to do. So that was like really on that trip where you and I were messaging back and forth, and you were telling me you were about to come to the same region. It was in Hanoi in northern Vietnam, and you said you were going
Mm-hmm.
to come that same region, and we were chatting about it. That was just really impactful for me. And then I thought I did it big, and then I got to see your trip, 5 months across multiple countries, and I was like, okay, I've got some learning to do.
It was an amazing trip. It was amazing. I think my daughter will never forget it. You know, we got to meet my VAs in the Philippines, um, and I think that it's also changed them. I mean, one of them never seen, like, one of my VA had not seen her parents in 3 years, and her youngest child never met her parents. So the fact that I was able to, like, send them on a trip to go so they can meet, the grandson can meet the grandparents for the first time, that was amazing. So yeah, I don't know. I can't talk about it enough. It seems like it's forever ago though, you know? And I love to go on a trip like that again.
Yeah,
So
I
now I'm setting things up so I can go.
Yeah, I love that. So you hire a lot of VAs in your business, which stands for virtual assistants. They're people that handle paperwork and processes in your business overseas. And I hire VAs too. And now I feel bad. I need to go see my VAs in person, and go. I have VAs in the Philippines as well. And so, did it kind of change your relationship with your VAs when you went there in person and met
Oh,
them?
absolutely. Absolutely. We have been really good at treating our VAs like human instead of machine like some people do. We actually have really good culture, core values in our company. But just seeing them, getting to see where they live, how what their houses, not houses, more like a shed, right? Looks like, it changed me. And I just feel like I want to help them to get better. And I know it's probably a touchy situation. Like, I would love to hire more US people. However, there's also that cost and sometimes the work ethics into certain tasks. So we outsource to other country. And sometimes it's a business decision, but we treat them just like team or family, work family. So
Yeah, I have gotten such good quality work hiring overseas. I have gotten great friendships. I've had several VAs over the years. There's a girl who works for us now who's really great. I've seen pictures of their family. I've talked to them on video chat when we're working on a tough problem. Um, I wouldn't be where I am today without the team, but I also believe that it's best if you learn how to do a task first before you outsource it, or you hire someone who knows how to do it. And I've had VAs tell me some really bad stories about previous clients they had, and I don't understand how you can not treat someone like a human being just because they're in a foreign country. And it's also, I I don't know if this is the right motivation, but sometimes I feel responsible for making sure my VAs get paid because I've had a VA in the past that moved from a big city when I first hired her out to the countryside with her family, and the salary I was paying her was going a very long way and taking care of a lot of people. And it's like, whoa, I got to make money because I got to keep paying her. She was doing an amazing job. Um, and there's more than just she and I relying on this. So, I've had to tell people this all the time, but we don't always live for ourselves. We live for the people around us. We live for our children, our business partners, our families. These sellers, many of the sellers I've talked to, have no idea how to get themselves out of the situation they're in, whether it's foreclosure or a destroyed house And then we have people, you and I both have people overseas working for us that rely on us. And so I always try to remind myself when I'm having a tough day that it's not just me that I'm working for here. So I'm glad to hear that you have that kind of relationship with your VAs. And as soon as you told me you went and saw them and you showed me some videos on your phone, I was like, oh my God, I'm messing up. I need to go see my VAs.
Well, I feel that anytime I bring someone on board into our organization, VA or not, that is my responsibility to help this person, to, in whichever way I can, to impact this person. Hopefully this person will be with us for a long time. But if we are not the right fit, then hopefully this person gains something from the time with us that they can, you know, help them into their next part of their life. And it's a responsibility when you bring someone on board, and for, if they do a good job at what they do, I feel responsible. Like if I have to let someone go, it just, it's always tough. I don't know. It never got easy. Regardless. Yeah.
And so we talked about a course, the idea of a course earlier. And before you do what you did today, you were on a certain course in life and something changed it. And so I always ask every guest, what book changed your course, either early on in your real estate journey or once you were already rocking and rolling? What book changed your course?
Ooh, that's a tough one, Michael. What book changed my course? That's a tough one. I read a lot of books.
I do too.
Let me think. Okay, if you put the question that way, I think I have two books that changed my set. Will that work?
Yeah, two's great.
Okay. All right. So two books. One is Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And it changed me in a way, and I tell you this, and maybe some of you can resonate with me. I grew up in a Vietnamese family. We know how to work hard, but I would have to say we don't work smart sometimes. We just work hard. My mom taught me to work hard. My grandmother taught me to work hard. So when we had a business, we worked our ass off, excuse my language, but we didn't work smart. So when I read Who Not How, I don't read, I do Audible. Who Not How, it opened my eyes like, okay, V, you've been thinking so small. You need to think bigger. You need to get help from people because I don't know how to get help. So by reading that book, now it's not just me getting help, but it's a mutual, I don't want to use the word mutual benefit, but how about we leverage and we move forward together? That's like, just by the book Who Not How. The other book is Build to Sell. I can't remember the author. He wrote two books. But anyway, Build to Sell. So, do you have that book back there?
I do. I just can't find it. I have so many books. I'm looking at my I also have Who Not How. I'm looking for Built to Sell.
Who wrote Build to Sell? Anyway.
Put in the comments if you know who wrote Built to Sell.
It's probably in my library somewhere here. But anyway, so that book, right? I was fortunate enough to read that book because, again, come from my background of hardworking, and you become the operator in your business. The Build to Sell teach me to actually become a business owner and get myself out of the business. So the sooner I get myself out of the business, the better I am. So those two books changed my life, changed my course of thinking in a big way.
Yeah, Who Not How opened up a world for me as well. I was just on another podcast this week, and they said recommend a book, and I actually went to Who Not How, and I had it sitting right next to me so I could show the camera for people watching on YouTube. And then I put it back, and then you bring up Who Not How, and now my copy's way over there. I'm not going to go get it. But I just did the same thing. That changed my world. You know, in Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is a book many real estate investors read, in
I
Rich
have
Dad
not
Poor,
yet read that book, but I came
you
across that book when I was in college, Rich Dad Poor Dad. But I have not read that book.
you are the only real estate investor to ever tell me they've not read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
So
So
yeah, who not
in Rich
how.
Who Not How, and also Built to Sell. Yeah. So even if you don't intend to sell your business, you should still operate every business as if you're going to sell it one day. You should design everything, every process. And I also live my life by a motto of every process is a product, because everything you know how to do and do well, someone wants to buy. Even if you have no intention of selling it, I still document. I still do procedures and SOPs as if it was a product someone's going to buy from me, even though I have no intention of selling it. But I was going to say, in Rich Dad Poor Dad, they use language has power over you of how you think and how you interact with the world. And so they say in there in that book, the poor don't say I can't afford. I'm sorry, they said the poor say I can't afford it. The rich say how can I afford it? Because saying the word how activates a different part of your brain than saying I can't afford it. And so I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was one of the first books I read, like many real estate investors, and that seed was planted. And then when I read Who Not How, it was like both of those ideas connected. That you don't say I can't afford it, say how can I afford it, and then you don't ask who can do it, but I'm sorry, not how do you do it, but who can do it. So who, not how, and that those two concepts have changed the way I look at every problem in life. Every problem in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe one of these days. I got a bunch of credit in Audible here. So I might. But Build to Sell is by John Warrilow. Warrilow, maybe. You can see it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Look at that. And we're getting V to buy Rich Dad Poor Dad live on the show.
Maybe one day I'll run into Robert Kawasaki and said, I haven't read your book yet. Well, can you give me a copy and sign it? Then I'll read it.
Well, 10 years in and you've had a lot of success. So not everyone has to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then also you started with Homevestors, great company, great mentorship, great training. And so you had the right people in your corner. But I guarantee you, V, the people that mentored you at Homevestors read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
I don't know about that.
Really?
I don't know about that.
We'll have to talk to your mentor.
They may have had Rich Dad, but they didn't read the Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay. And I like to end every show talking about the go giver. So we're real big believers in the go giver here. And so I always give the example that when you were born, your parents had to give to you long before they were able to receive from you. And if you have a job, you'll work for 2 weeks or more before you get a paycheck. And if you are holding firewood in your hand, staring at a fireplace, saying, "Give me heat first, and then I'll give you this wood," it's going to be a very cold, cold winter. So I remind everybody that we have to be go-givers and give first before we can receive. So I like to ask every guest, what can you give our audience today?
Okay, so what I can give is if someone wants to pick up the phone and call or email me, you have my email and my phone number. Uh, I'm happy to show you how you can earn higher interest rate than a CD or a money market passively. So
That's
that's my
awesome.
gift.
And what was the phone number again?
713 ballers.
713 Ballers. And the phone is the best way for them to contact you about that opportunity?
Phone or email, either way is fine, or v@reballers.com. It's
Awesome.
VEE@reballers.com.
And then what can our audience give you in return?
Just bring me deals.
Just that simple, huh?
Just
And
simple.
you have an awesome podcast, RE Ballers. I might have been on that show, which is part of why it's so awesome. So go check that out. RE
Yeah,
Ballers
you're a
on.
superstar.
If you say that long enough, maybe it'll be true one day.
Best
And
rated podcast.
was it really?
Huh?
It can't be. You've had some real celebrities on there. I'm jealous of some of the. You got to help me get some of these guests that you've had on your podcast. You gotta write
You
me
just
or.
stalk them long enough, they'll say yes.
And so on YouTube, it's Ari Ballers, and it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well, right?
Yes.
Yes, awesome. And if anybody has questions for me or want to reach out, I give my phone number away on this show. It hasn't been a problem yet. Please don't make it a problem. And do not call me. Please text because I get 1,000 spam calls a day. It's 832-301-9672. And you can follow me on, if you're listening on a podcast like Apple Podcast or Spotify, please follow me on YouTube. It's Michael Hoang, and it's at Michael B. Someone on Instagram. You can also DM me on Instagram if you have deals in the Houston area, if you want to talk about deals, if you want me to take a second look at something, or if you want to learn how we can invest together, please give me a call. So this has been the Be Someone podcast with Michael Hoang and V. Lee signing off.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on.